Let's begin this segment by talking about the attack on the Mercer Street. This is a motor tanker vessel that was attacked by kamikaze drones or suicide drones, one-way drones. Different militaries call them different things. A civilian merchant was attacked by two of these at the end of July last year. Central Command has completed its investigation. They have released the executive summary of their investigation, and I'm going to bring that executive summary to you today. Full credit to Central Command based out of Tampa for making the slides. All right, so on the 29th of July, 2021, an Iranian UAV attacked the motor tanker Mercer Street. The executive conclusion, we're just going to jump right to the end here and tell you what we've concluded, what the United States has concluded. The confluence of multiple components with very specific and matching identities to previously exploited and known Iranian one-way attack UAVs, the use of Iranian design and produce the one-way attack kamikaze UAV is a growing trend in the region. They are actively used by Iran and their proxies against coalition forces in the region, to include targets in Saudi Arabia and Iraq. That's the conclusion of the investigation, is that this was a Iranian designed drone used to attack a civilian vessel in international waters about 21 miles off the coast of Oman. Now we'll see where that is here in a second. Okay, so we're going to summarize what happened here on early July 29th. A Liberian flagged motor tanker, Mercer Street, operated by Zodiac Maritime Limited, came under attack from two one-way UAVs while transiting in international waters off the coast of Oman. After the first attack failed, the crew was able to recover the UAV debris, which is how we know the design and type of the model, because normally the model is devastated in the explosion on board. And so because the explosion didn't happen on the first one, we were able to recover most of the parts of the UAV, reassemble it forensically, and identify it. That's how we know who did this. On 30th July, in a separate deliberate attack on Mercer Street, was struck by another drone. So the very next day, they came back and did it again. This time, the drone did explode properly, killing the ship's master, which, as I understand it, is like the captain, and a security officer, a UK citizen. The second attack required a calculated, deliberate retargeting of the Mercer Street by Iran. So this took some coordination. This took some sensor work. This wasn't just somebody on the beach of Oman flying UAV drones over the coastline on his own. This one took some coordination with people who knew where this ship was over a 2-day period. The crew followed appropriate procedures, gathering in safe havens inside the ship, and informed their company of the attack. The company informed UK Maritime Trade Organization, or UK MTO, of the incident, who then communicated the matter to headquarters, United States Naval Force Central Command, or US NAV CENT, because we have an aircraft carrier, and the Iwo Jima is very near the area of this attack. So here you have a picture of the Mercer Street. Here is a drone aerial shot looking down on the pilot house. This is the pilot house structure. This part here is the bridge where they actually navigate and have lookouts. Here you can see this is the starboard wing, it's called. People can stand out on this wing and provide lookouts for security so they can see down the side of the vessel clearly. The wing that I'm pointing out is this little piece here that juts out. You can see there's like even a little canvas cover for the watch there, so that he doesn't have the sun directly on him. Here you can see the debris from the first failed attack. So the drone is just in pieces, essentially. They went out and picked it up. Very dangerous thing to do, especially if it had explosives on board. And here are some of those pieces. Obviously, the drone, fell apart whenever it impacted. But the second one did this. It blew a hole measuring approximately 6 feet across, down into the rooms below. I believe this was an attack on a specific ship because they attacked the same ship twice. Yeah, so they didn't attack a different ship the second time. If it was just one attack, that would be random. But because they did it with 2 attacks over a 2-day period using the same method. So it's probably the same people doing it. All the evidence at this point leads to this was a specific attack on this ship. All right. So U.S. Nav sent directed the aircraft carrier USS Ronald Reagan with escort Mercer to close the coast of Oman and establish communication with Mercer Street and render assistance. A U.S. drone was also directed to assist the area. That's how we got that drone photo. A helicopter from USS Ronald Reagan located Mercer Street in a remote area of the Arabian Sea. Working together with UKMTO and Zodiac Communications were established with Mercer Street. Surviving crew members confirmed the master and security officer had been killed. In early afternoon, an explosive ordnance disposal team, EOD team, from the USS Ronald Reagan fast roped onto the Mercer Street to ensure the vessel's security, verify no further explosive-related danger existed, and facilitate vessel's communication with the Zodiac, and gather debris of the incident. They're starting to gather evidence at this point. The next day, on July 31st, the U.S. EOD team was extracted, so they spent, it looks like, the night on board, and returned to the Ronald Reagan. Material gathered from the scene was transported to NAV Cent headquarters for forensic analysis, and that's how we got this evidence. That's how we know who did this, because look at how much of the unexploded drone remained. Entire sections of it, like this very uniquely designed vertical stabilizer. It's almost like a rudder. Here you can see one. This is a picture of one of the drones in Iran. Looks like this one didn't explode either. And this is the part that we're looking at on another drone of the same type right here. And this is a close-up of it. This part that is mounted to the vertical stabilizer has a very specific shape. So they're pointing this out to say, hey, here it is in Iran, and here it is on board the Mercer Street. It is the same craft. So by August 2nd, a multilateral exploitation team initiated analysis of the recovered debris. So here's some of the debris that was recovered here. Some close-ups of it. They've got a really good shot here. Looks like that's a foot maybe tall. It's bigger than you would think, these drones. These are not toys. These are, long range, high endurance, explosive drones. Let's see if you guys have anything in the chat before we go on here. Yeah, I do believe it was a deliberate attack. I don't know why, but somebody really wanted to attack this particular vessel. Yeah. So here's the Iranian Delta Wing UAS family. These are the different types of versions. Beginning in May 2014, this was at a weapons expo. Suicide drone, very basic design there. Here's one from 2019. It has a smaller Delta Wing. This was used in the attack against Saudi Arabia. This is what they recovered. This one's from September 2020. That's just last year. Has a larger Delta Wing. This crashed in Yemen. And these are some press video releases from Iran where you can clearly see the port and starboard vertical stabilizers on this type of drone. And here it says, forensic conclusions are U.S. experts conclude based on the vertical fin being identical to those identified on one of the Iranian designs and produced one-way attack kamikaze UAV family that Iran is actively involved in this attack. And that is really key phrasing. Actively involved means that they're also responsible for it. So we could respond to Iran for doing this. But when I say we, think about who this hurt. A UK citizen was killed. It's a Liberian flagged vessel controlled by an Israeli company. So Israel could respond. And the captain was of Romanian descent. So even Romania has stake in this event. So there could be multiple nations responding to this attack. I mean, this is clearly on a civilian side, it's murder, right? They just murdered some people at sea for no reason. But could this also be considered an act of war? Shooting, damaging ships at sea with weapons, I would argue yes, but there's probably very clear guidelines as to what an act of war is and is not that I'm not aware of. Les White says Iran is angry about sanctions and all those malfunctions happening in their industrial facilities. Yeah, those malfunctions are awfully suspicious, aren't they? Are cruise missiles considered kamikaze UAVs? I don't know. That's a good question. I've never considered them that, but maybe they're in the same family. Like, for instance, if the United States launched a cruise missile at a tanker in the Gulf, would that be an act of war? Would the United States have committed an act of war? I would argue that that is an act of war. So I consider this to be the same, in that same vein. I don't want to go to war with anybody, but this is what it looks like. Israel has already said that it will respond at a time of its choosing. That is a very common response by Israel. They don't necessarily respond right away, and they certainly don't tell the people like the United States does that, hey, we're coming. Yep, we're coming. We'll be there on Tuesday, and then we're going to leave on Friday. Like we always announce our intentions, which I think is really dumb. I like the way Israel does it. Israel says, hey, we're going to respond. Just wait for it. It's coming. So I think it's a smarter way of doing it. So here's some more of the debris. You can see the honeycomb design. This is very common in any kind of aircraft because it adds strength without adding a lot of weight. This honeycomb reinforcement. And that's the blast hole. Man, it was a pretty good sized blast. I mean, obviously this is not armor. This is, sheet metal essentially. But it blew down into a cabin area where I suspect those two people were. And take a look inside. This is them looking down. You can see the American EOD person is right there. Here's another guy. And this is the cabin where presumably those two individuals were. And keep in mind, this is the day after the first attack. So they were probably, trying to figure out a plan of what's going on, whenever this happened. But look at all the little punctures. Like whenever this thing exploded, it created a lot of shrapnel. Yeah, so it's not surprising that people got hurt. Here we go. This is inside that room. Yeah. Like all this debris just got blown down on top of those two guys. When Israelis respond, it's them, but you don't see it coming. Yeah. It'll be interesting seeing what Israel does for this. I mean, the fact that they took lives escalates this above previous attacks. Like last year, they were planting limpet mines on ships in port. And a lot of those limpet mines weren't even working because they're so old. A few of them did go off, but nobody got hurt. There was like a little bit of oil spill off one that did go off, and they just put a little containment around the oil and cleaned it up. This killed people from multiple different nations. So I wouldn't be surprised if this is the beginning of something, because Iran and its proxies, like the Houthi in Yemen, that's a proxy of them in Syria, proxy of Iran as well. They're just going to continue to escalate until somebody physically stops them, goes back and says, no more, you can't do this. This is reckless endangerment of people's lives, if not intentionally trying to take lives in peacetime. It's really, really dangerous, and do not support anything like this. And I would support action against Iran at this point, military action. I don't want to invade them, but we must punish them. We can't let acts like this continue. This is the photographers in the room now looking out towards, looks like the bridge there maybe. Yeah, that's the bridge consoles. So this hit right outside the bridge area. Who knows how many people were on the bridge at the time. I wonder if this was like a stateroom. It's weird that they killed the captain and the leading security officer, or a security officer, who were in this room apparently. See, Les White says Bo Johnson already spoke on it and he's not too happy. Who's Bo Johnson? I don't know who that is. Arnie says, might want to consider the inner politics of Iran. I don't want to get into politics of anybody. This is not about politics. This is about murdering two people at sea. Yeah. And that's it. So, yeah, pretty sad. I mean, I wish we do have some happy news, some better news, but that's pretty disgusting.